Hello, happy Saturday. So I am coming on live to talk about actually a whole constellation of things and the way all of these things are actually connected. So I want to talk about why breakups are so hard, it's so painful, how that connects to the abandonment wound, something you can do about that right now, why you keep repeating the same patterns again and again with men and relationships, and how all of this connects to anxious or avoidant attachment, and some things that you can do or what you can really do about all of that, because it's actually all connected. So I want to first just go into, we're going to start with breakup, and I'm going to show you how everything that I'm going to talk about is actually all connected back to this abandonment wound, okay? So when you are fresh out of a breakup that was probably not your choice, although you could still experience these things even if the breakup was your choice, okay? So literally, this is why we say, like, it actually feels like a wound to the heart. You may be experiencing that. You may be experiencing aching or a stabbing sensation, chest constriction, bouts of anxiety. These are all really normal reactions to the sudden tearing away of your attachment figure. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a minute. So heartbreak is literally located, like the pain of heartbreak is literally located in the same part of your brain as when you are in physical pain. That's why we actually call it heartbreak, like it's physical, because for all intents and purposes, what you are experiencing, because it's located in the part of your brain that registers physical pain, feels like a physical pain, right? So other things that you may experience with that, waking up in a cold sweat, nightmares, dreams about your ex, waking up with like kind of inexplicable anxiety, right? Like all of these things are normal reactions to a breakup. And this is why these are happening. It's because your sympathetic nervous system is kind of reactivated into fight, flight, freeze response. That's what's happened with the breakup. So basically, it's preparing your body for real physical danger because your body cannot tell the difference between an emotional threat and a physical one. So all of these reactions and responses are because your sympathetic nervous system is activated. And this can be worsened by previous abandonment, previous wounds around that. So like if when you were a child, you had an experience of abandonment, which you may or may not remember, that would explain why it's more intense to go through it again. It can also be intensified depending on if you've had heartbreak before, if it feels like the same wound that is kind of like reopening, is typically when that feels even more intense, although it is intense for everybody. The reason for that is because we become attached to our partners in the same way that we attach to our primary attachment figure as children, as babies, infants, and up. So it's the same kind of bond that's formed. So when we're babies, if our primary attachment figure, typically our mother, were to abandon us, we would die. And so our attachment systems, because they bond the same way to our partners, doesn't know the difference between I'm not a baby anymore, I'm not actually going to die if this person leaves me. So literally we have that experience, we trigger our sympathetic nervous system because it's like, oh my God, danger, 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 alert, 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 like we're going to die. And then all of those symptoms and things are the result of that. The other thing that happens is that we get chemically bonded with our partners. Their presence in our lives actually triggers and activates a series of hormones within us. And so when they suddenly pull away from us, when they break up with us, when they leave, suddenly our body, which is like really used to having that certain hit of different chemicals and hormones in your body, is not getting that hit anymore. You actually go through a withdrawal as if it were to something else that you were addicted to, because we also in that way are actually addicted to our partners. Our body depends on our partners for those hormones and it's used to that. So then when that's taken away, that also heightens that experience. Okay? So what will happen then is that you may feel the need to like know where your partner is, because just knowing where they are, it's that object permanence from when we were children. We want to know where our parents are. They're our secure base. Even if that partner's not talking to us anymore, if we know where they are, that is enough to calm us down. So although you may not have driven to your partner's house, although maybe you have driven by just to see, are they home? Literally, that's like seems out of control and crazy, but really what's going on is it's that attachment system that's been activated, and you're like, as long as I know where they are, I'll feel safer. It eases the anxiety. You start to see them everywhere because you're searching, where are they? So you'll see people who look like them when you go out. You'll have that second take, that heart leap. You're seeing pictures, you're just seeing ghosts and images of them everywhere because you're looking for it, because your brain is like searching, where are they? You may not have called, you may not have texted, but you may have thought about it, or maybe you actually did, calling and texting and trying to think of ways that you could get back together with them, even if you know they weren't really good for you and it wasn't really a good, healthy relationship. That's still going to be going through your mind. It's all related back to that attachment system and also the addiction that we have to that person, whether or not they were healthy for us. So if you're feeling any of the things that I've talked about, and especially if it's like even more extreme, you most likely have an abandonment core wound, which I'm going to talk about in detail today. So because of this, you are likely to recreate this same experience, this same pattern with the next guy. It sort of becomes like a Groundhog Day where it's like, oh, same situation again, different person. Tends to keep repeating itself, and I'm going to talk about why that is. So I did not know what was going on in my love blueprint when I was like in my early 20s, teens, like when I started like seriously dating people. But I can look back at my two sort of like pivotal heartbreak moments, and I can see all the signs of what I'm going to talk about. So the first person who kind of like broke my heart, I ended up being stuck on that guy for 3 years. Like all of the kinds of stuff that I've just listed that happened to me for like 3 years. I just couldn't get over him. And really, I'm going to talk about why that was, because now I'm like, oh, that doesn't have to be that way. The second time I had like a pretty big heartbreak, and that was kind of a pivotal moment for me, was that I realized like, okay, like this is definitely a pattern. I'm definitely being attracted to a certain type of guy in a certain type of situation that keeps happening. So I was like, I'm going to figure out what the heck is causing this pattern. I wasn't going to keep repeating it. I was like, I am totally done with repeating this. So I saw myself as the common denominator, because we always are the common denominators for our experiences. And I was like, okay, so what is it that keeps creating this in my experience? Unavailable men, heartbreak, thinking I can change them. I was not going to be stuck on this guy for another 3 years because it had taken me that long to get over the first one. So I was like, I'm going to take my power back, which meant I had to face my fears. It meant I had to figure out what the heck was in my love blueprint, which at the time I didn't know all that stuff. What the heck was there that was recreating this for me? So what I'm going to say about going through an intense situation like a heartbreak is that this is an opportunity actually for growth and major transformation. If you take advantage of this, right now you are the closest you will feel to that core wound that is actually kind of at the center of the vortex of all of these things that are happening in your dating experience and you're carrying with you. We can trace it back typically to childhood. And it's been reopened now, which means that you actually have greater access to healing and rewiring all those patterns. So it's really a moment to take advantage of. It's a moment for you to actually transform, develop that relationship with yourself, your self-love, your self-worth, and heal whatever is there that is causing this to come up so intensely right now. If you don't, chances are you'd be like me, and then it's just happened again and again. Oh, same guy, right? Not the same guy, but same situation, basically same blueprint, right? So if you have a deep-seated fear of abandonment, then you'll experience lots of anxiety in relationships. And we're going to talk about that abandonment core wound right now. See if you identify yourself in this. So it could manifest as being hyper aware of when he texts, if he texts, how much he texts, the amount that he texts, fear that he just won't show up on a date. Like literally, I've had this fear, like maybe he's just not going to show up. Fear that you are way more into him than he is and needing constant confirmation and testing to see if he's as invested as you. So like maybe you don't text to see if he's going to text on his own, see if he responds, see if he's going to reach out. And then you're measuring like the amount of his interest based on the way he's texting or the amount he's texting. Basically, you're testing constantly to see, is he really invested? Because you have this fear that he's not and you'll be abandoned. This fear also makes you hyper attuned to him, what he's doing, what he's saying, reading him for signs that he might be pulling away. Trying really hard to be liked, so finding out what he likes and then trying to be more like that. Avoiding things that you think might push him away or make him not like you, like conversations that you might need to have, things that you're not comfortable with, something that you should actually be bringing up, but you won't because you're afraid that's going to push him away. Fear that he might be pulling away, like that hyper attunement, right? Or that maybe he's ghosting you. Fear that he doesn't like you as much as you like him. He becomes basically the center of your world, right? Everything kind of revolves around that. It doesn't matter how long that you've been with this person. It could have been just like a couple dates and you're already like he's starting to become that center of your world and your thoughts. Overly clinginess sometimes. Feeling like if you get into a fight or a disagreement that it's like literally the end of the relationship and totally afraid that this is it, it's done, this is the end. That like nagging fear at the back of your head that he could leave you at any time. And in fact, there may even be a little bit of an expectation around that like he will leave, that he's probably going to leave, which of course then we do all these things, these behaviors that sort of reinforce that. It also could be flipped. You could have an abandonment wound and have this totally flipped. So it could be that you are keeping people at a distance. You are not letting anyone get too close to you. You're kind of a closed book emotionally and in terms of intimacy. You might be the one who is ending things first. You might be the one who is overly picky. You've got some fear of like being engulfed or overwhelmed by someone. You may have hot, cold behavior, coming closer than pushing away. That typically would map onto an avoidant. And the first set that I gave you would map typically onto an anxious attachment. And honestly, both of these attachment styles have the same core wound, which is that abandonment wound. So if you have either of these sort of tendencies in dating, in relationship, you have an abandonment wound. The secure attachment is different. That's the one who actually feels secure, right? But if you are anxious or you're avoidant, you have that same fear, okay? So wounds like this cause you to repeat the same pattern with men. So the kinds of dating situations, same sort of situation, same sort of person again and again and again, same behaviors, same patterns, the ways it goes bad, the ways that it ends, the same kind of trauma typically tends to keep repeating. And the same kind of emotions tend to come up while you're in those relationships. So whatever those typical emotions are that are really unwanted and not the positive emotions, not the feel-good emotions, those are the ones that you feel it no matter who you're with, right? So for example, the major anxiety, the fear of engulfment, the overwhelm, any of those things that keep repeating, that's because that all comes from that same core wounding. And whatever attachment type you are, it's still the same base, basically. So all of this traces back to your love blueprint. We continue to recreate the same thing until we heal, replace the faulty wiring, faulty patterns, faulty conditioning in that love blueprint. So this is what trauma does. This is what the love blueprint does. It just keeps repeating itself. So your dating starts to look like Groundhog Day, right? And so at some point you're like, okay, this is like the same, literally the same situation again. Like, why the heck do I keep attracting this? Why the heck am I here again, right? If you're having those thoughts, what you're looking at is a love blueprint, right? Because it's the map, it's the blueprint for what you're going to build no matter what, until you actually change that. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions so far? So I'm going to talk about now like some common behavior patterns that you would see or that you've developed to cope with this wound. So could be one, could be a few, could be maybe none, but most likely you've got some of these. So check in which ones maybe show up for you. Codependency in your adult relationships, that could be there, especially if you are more of the anxious type. The need to self-medicate, and this can look different, but this is basically a way to handle or cope with your emotions. So self-soothing behaviors that are not that functional. So it could be drinking, could be binge eating, could be eating disorder, could be shopping too much, overworking, over people pleasing, basically anything that's going to sort of fill that emotional need that isn't being filled, okay? You could set yourself up for re-abandonment unconsciously. So you keep choosing relationships that are like the childhood relationships where you had the most pain, had that core wounding in. So that's like keep choosing avoidant or unavailable partners. It's the same dynamics. The behaviors are the same. The way the relationship is the same. It's just that you keep changing out the person. This is why I say we keep repeating. This is the pattern. It's part of the love blueprint. You may have memory gaps. So if you've ever tried to do work to figure out like, where does this come from in my childhood? You may not actually be able to locate where that comes from. The reason for this is that our brains, for a couple different reasons, may not actually have imprinted that memory. So all you've got is the emotional imprintation or the emotional memory, but you actually cannot remember where that abandonment comes from. Sometimes you can figure it out. You can talk to your parents, ask them questions, but honestly, it doesn't actually matter. You can still rewire and rewrite all of that, whether or not you can locate that original memory. And this is pretty common with people who are more avoidant attachment. They actually don't have a great memory of their childhood, and they have no memory of a lot of the things that happened that caused them to have that pattern now. So this is why we choose romantic partners who are most like the parent we didn't get the love we wanted from. The parent where we felt the most abandonment from tends to be then what we're recreating in our romantic partners. It's our subconscious, it's that subconscious blueprint. It's trying to recreate the situation to get what it needed that it didn't get. But then they hurt us because they are still the map of that original blueprint. And then it just sort of recreates that trauma for us or replays it and reinforces that all the beliefs and ideas that we have about ourselves are actually true because we're recreating it. So this is why breakups can be so incredibly challenging, right? Because it doesn't actually matter how long that relationship was. It's that core wounding and those beliefs, they're just brought up again and reinforced for us again, okay? So because that person, as I said, became a primary attachment figure in our life, right? So it's not just that person though, it's like the attachment figure wounding, right? That gets opened up again. So it's an old wound, that's why it feels the way it feels. So, you know, I can give an example of like, I fell in love with someone I'd only dated for a few months. The end was so hard for me that I literally like couldn't get myself to eat, or it was really hard to eat. It would be like trying to force the food down my throat because I knew I had to eat, but I would feel like nauseous forcing myself to. Like, that's the level that we can get to, and it does not matter how long you were with the person. Like, I had not dated that person very long, but he was such a match for what was in my love blueprint that it was that painful. So I remember seeing guys who looked like him literally everywhere. I was constantly thinking about him, remembering all these memories that we had, mourning the future that I wanted with him, stalking him on social media, like crying unexpectedly, like all of that. And it was like a short time with someone. So it does not matter how long it is, because it's just reopening that wound that's already there, right? So if you feel like, oh, this is too intense for what I like, the relationship with this person, or it wasn't that good or whatever, like, doesn't matter. Okay. And the tape that then we end up replaying is like, why couldn't he choose me? I don't understand. What's wrong with me? Aren't I not lovable? Like, what is wrong? I don't understand, right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that love blueprint that you keep repeating. That's all. So what I did as a response to this, and maybe you recognize yourself in that, is I went from the one end of the unavailable guy, was like, okay, not going to do that again. So then I chose somebody who was like more than available, like too much available, like way, way, way too into me for the level that I was into him. He was in love, I was not, but it was like, that's safe, right? Because he's not going to go anywhere. I won't be abandoned. And then all kinds of stuff happened in that situation. But that was just the abandonment wound, just choosing something else, like trying not to be abandoned. So the reason that first relationship that took like 3 years to finally move past was because I did not have the tools, and hadn't done like the work to my love blueprint that now I know to do, I know how to do. But what I know is that the reason for that first heartbreak was because it was a wound that was already there. So I had no idea why I kept being attracted to unavailable men, thinking that if I just didn't like put too much pressure on them, if I didn't come on too strong, if I was really likable and fun and whatever else I thought I needed to be, then they'd choose me, then they'd stay. So that led to me studying all these books on men and attraction, and like, that's not going to solve the problem, right? Because dating for me was so anxiety producing. Once I liked someone, it was so much anxiety. And I was really terrible at setting boundaries or having important conversations because I didn't want to scare them away. Because I knew these were men who would run away, right? But that was in my love blueprint. That was what was so attractive to me about them, honestly. And this was all at a subconscious level. So I started to think, like, if I could learn how to tame them or like learn the right thing to say or do, then they won't leave me, right? So then I'm studying all this stuff about men and attraction. And if I just knew, like, if I just knew what to do, like, just need to know how to handle these avoidant men because I just want it to work so badly. I'm so into this guy. Like, it's literally screaming, like, you've got a wounding. You've got some, like, core blueprint that's not quite right. But, like, I didn't know that. So I just thought, oh, that's all men. Or I just won't ever be attracted to somebody who wouldn't be like this. So this is just how it is, right? Because a lot of the dating advice that you read is really speaking to women who have an anxious attachment, who are attracted to avoidant men. Literally, if you look through that literature, that's what you actually see, because it's all advice on how not to scare them away. The guys who get scared away have the avoidant attachment. The other ones will not do that in that way. So it's just no, like huge, huge, fat, big no. Don't, like, that's not the answer. It's not. So I then started to, after that second heartbreak I told you was like the turning point for me, I then started to like go into the work. I was like, okay, it's me. It's something in me. And actually starting with the dating advice actually led me into personal development, because then I found someone who actually was, it wasn't like tips and tricks and strategies. It was like actually like doing the work so that you just don't keep recreating that pattern. And so then through that work, that's when I discovered one of my core wounds. It was basically, I was like, I just need to get to the bottom of this. I demand to know why this keeps repeating. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep being attracted to this kind of guy? The only kind that I'm really attracted to. Because my entire life, I'd had like low self-esteem, which this goes back to the love blueprint, all of the things that we carry about ourselves. I literally never felt good enough, not with guys, not even like with my friends. I was always questioning, like, are they going to abandon me? When are they going to leave? When are they not going to be here for me? Literally in the back of my head, that is what was always there, that I'd be abandoned and I'd be alone. I remember like when I was a kid, my mom would pick me up sometimes a couple times. It's so imprinted in my memory though that she came late to pick me up at school a couple times. And I cannot tell you how much anxiety I had sitting on that bench thinking, what if she never comes? And like planning what I was going to have to do if my mom didn't show up. It would be like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I'd go up to the office to wait. I would be in such panic, such anxiety until she arrived. Because I had this thought in the back of my head, she's going to abandon me. And I never saw that this was a program that was running. Like I never saw until I started to do this work, the abandonment wound was just running, running, running. My parents would go out on a Friday night date. We'd have a babysitter. I wouldn't be able to fall asleep till they came home. I can remember sitting like at the top of the stairs just waiting for them, and I didn't want the babysitter to know that I wasn't in bed. Or sometimes I'd go down and I'd like watch TV with her until they came because I couldn't fall asleep till I knew they were home. Like so afraid of being abandoned. And I hadn't put the pieces together that this is what was like running so much stuff for me till my grandmother died when I was in high school. And by the way, I didn't put the pieces together back then, but I had a massive, like, it wasn't a mental breakdown, but it was like crisis, and nobody recognized it as what it was. So like I developed insomnia, I developed an eating disorder, and like things just started to fall apart emotionally for me. But I was trying to maintain some semblance of control. It was so hard for me. My grandmother died. Well, I think I mentioned this before, but I didn't put all the pieces together until that second heartbreak I had when I was like, this is enough. Like, I'm going to figure out what the problem is, that it all tied back to when I was 5, my dad died. And my whole life I'd been like, nope, totally fine, didn't affect me. Like, never realized that there was a connection between all of these things. So I thought instead at some core level, like I just wasn't worthy of love, right? Because the abandonment, then what are you going to decide about yourself, right? I'm just not worthy of love. So I need to be a straight A student. I need to be perfect in every, I need to always be liked. I need to never not be liked. I need to feel secure in my relationships, but I didn't. So then sometimes walls up, people out, right? Choosing men who just confirmed that belief, right? Like this is what happens, these patterns that are in the love blueprint. So the abandonment wound gets opened up when someone leaves us, when someone dies. There are so many ways that this can be re-triggered, and then you can look at your life and what are the patterns that have played out my whole life because of this. So it doesn't even have to be a long relationship. I want to give you the permission to be like, oh, that's what's going on. Like there's nothing wrong with you if you are getting overly attached in the beginning, that it's literally just all related back to that attachment system. It's never actually the person. It's something in you that they've triggered. It's not the event. It's something that event triggered that was already in you, right? There are already these things, these accumulation, and they start to accumulate over time, right? That come from childhood, usually. That's where they come from. And often very, very young, you may not remember that memory, but when it comes up, it's like, oh, now I can heal it because it's here. So what's happening, we're triggering our nervous system. Like I said, it's your fight, flight, freeze response that your kind of overrides your logical or your rational brain. It floods your system with the alert hormones, of danger alert hormones, like adrenaline. It creates that massive anxiety. Or even, you may have experienced this. This is something that I walked through life with for a very long time, was kind of low level anxiety, like all the time, just kind of under the surface all the time. And you know, at one point at that low point for me, when I sort of had all that stuff kind of happen all at once, the insomnia, the eating disorder, I started getting panic attacks as well. And so you can see it's all attached back to that core wounding, that blueprint, what's in that blueprint, right? And that core wound and those other things that have happened sort of accumulate. We develop all these beliefs about ourselves, all these ideas about relationship and men and life and love, right? All of these things get kind of piled on. And so there might be a moment in your life where you had literally the lowest low of your life. And what was behind all of that was what was not healed within you yet. So my nervous system, because of that very, very, very young experience, that is the one that I could locate, and there may have been even earlier before that, right? Because oftentimes birth is actually the moment, and this is anybody's birth, is the moment of the greatest trauma because we are separated from our mother. And there is no memory of that, but there is now the anxiety or the avoidant attachment, right? Anxious or avoidant attachment that is actually coming from that, like way beyond memory. So what happens is that our nervous systems are primed, our sympathetic nervous systems are primed for fight, flight, freeze response. So they are always on hyper alert, typically who's going to reject us, abandon us, any ways that we might feel that. So when I went digging, that's kind of the stuff that I started to uncover, right? I had never cried out about my dad. Like I said, I went through life thinking that did not impact me. Like I have a stepdad who I have an amazing relationship with, my mom, like why would this be an impact on me, right? It's not a logical or rational thing though, right? This is what got imprinted in the nervous system. So healing my dating patterns, calling in my partner, it actually began when I really got that I was being driven by this love blueprint that had been started from some abandonment, some core wounds, and then I'd been collecting things ever since then, all in my subconscious, all below the level of what I was actually aware of. And I had created a whole warehouse of beliefs about myself, about men, about love, relationships. I'd experienced traumas in relationship, and it kind of like got piled on and piled on and piled on. I'd created self-fulfilling prophecies. I had this map for who my ideal partner was, and it was literally screwing me over. I had a map for how a relationship was or wasn't, and that was literally screwing me over. I had all these blocks and patterns, and I did not know any of those things were there. I just experienced that anxiety a lot, especially while dating. So as I started to like clear away, like layer by layer, all of the junk that was there, all the stuff that's in the love blueprint that's not working, but basically controls our relationship destinies, controls the way we're going to feel and the way it's going to work out, who we're attracted to, all of it, right? That what's there, then I started to rewire and reprogram it and kind of unblock whatever was blocked there and create new patterns. So this is not easy work because you're going to go in to look at the stuff that you're ashamed about and the things that you don't tell other people because of the shame that you have around it. Maybe things that you don't even know are there. A lot of this I did not even know was there. I didn't know there was this intense sadness about my dad dying because I normally felt totally fine. It's the deep work, it's the healing work, it's the self-love work. It's creating that relationship with yourself again. So anyways, I discovered how to do that, and it actually doesn't take very long, which is the like crazy thing, because the first time I had the heartbreak, it was 3 years, and then I just kept reproducing things. It doesn't actually take that long. I met my partner within a couple of months of doing that. Had I not done that work, first of all, I would not have pursued him or pursued a relationship with him. I wouldn't have even probably noticed him. And then, yes, if you know some of my story, we actually went on 3 dates. I ended it because I still hadn't finished doing that work. And then we started dating again about 2 months later. And there was still more work to do. But with that level of awareness and the ability to like work with myself and him, we were able to make that work. Otherwise, it wouldn't have even happened. So I don't care, like, it doesn't matter what you've read. It doesn't matter how much information you know. Nothing is going to work until your love blueprint and the triggers that are there and that all that stuff in there is sorted out. I could have read every book on men and attachment theory and attraction, which I did, and I would have still continued to fall into the same pattern, fall for the same guy, replay the same scenarios, because it was not happening at a conscious level. The nervous system and the subconscious brain are what control all of that, and that is not at a conscious level. It's below that, right? So the knowledge that we have is not enough to create the transformation. It's just knowledge, but it doesn't change you, if that makes sense. So I can basically see what's happening for someone, like what their block is. What is that pattern that keeps replaying that they can't see, or they can see, but they don't know how to shift, or they don't even know that that thing is there. So what I do with my clients is I help them rewire the whole block, the wound, the belief system, whatever is there that's not working, basically. So you don't actually need to know what the original trauma was or the original wound. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. It doesn't matter, because it keeps replaying in your life. So they come to me and they're like, this is the situation in my life. And we work with that situation because it's all there. It's a blueprint, right? The copy is everywhere. So you just look at what your patterns are. It's all there. So when you're trying to heal from an abandonment wound, like a breakup, it's really, really, really the most incredible time to do this transformative work, because that's where the pattern is. It's right there at the surface. That breakup is the wound. It's the recreating of it. It's the opening that allows you to come in and shift what's there once and for all. So my biggest transformations have always been in the hardest moments in my life. The moments when I was like Hail Mary, like I'm just ready. I just need this. I'm not going to keep reproducing what I've been producing. I'm going to change what needs to be changed. That is the moment when you are ready, when you are done, when you are opened up at that level emotionally, when all of that stuff is right there because it keeps reproducing. That's the moment when the biggest change is possible. So I will tell you, the lowest moments in my life were my greatest moments of transformation. They were the moments that made me who I chose to become because of them. And that is the question you have to ask yourself, is who do I want to become because of this? Because this is happening right now and it sucks. And who do I want to be now, given that this has happened to me? Because this could actually be working for me. This could be happening for me. So who am I going to become because of this? You become a stronger person because of what you've gone through. You become the next level version of yourself because of what you've gone through. You get to have what you really want because of the pain that you went through. That's the requirement for transformation, is to go through all that stuff. So I'm going to give you one quick practice right now. This is for you if you are triggered, if you are feeling anxiety, sadness, fear, any of those emotions that come up when your attachment system is triggered. One quick thing that you can do right now, or in any moment, this can become sort of a practice for you, something that you just know to do. Oftentimes we want to fight those feelings. We don't want to feel them. We want to stuff them. That's why we have some of those patterns of like self-soothing that become addictions that are not healthy, not good for us. We can become addicted to people for that. What you want to do instead is actually ground yourself in the present moment and actually feel what there is to feel, because once it is felt, it goes away. It's there as a message, and if you don't get the message, it keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back until you actually get what the message is. And the first step to being available for that message and actually hearing what there is to hear so that you can heal what needs to be healed, so you can change that pattern, is to be in the present moment. So what you would do, and you can try this right now, is you can close your eyes or you can have your eyes open. It doesn't matter, but if having your eyes open doesn't like kind of get you out of your thoughts and out of your head and allow you to literally just be like a presence in the moment, like literally in the moment, then close your eyes. And what you'll do is you're just going to tune into your senses. This is a way to literally anxiety gone like that. If you actually allow yourself to experience the anxiety, it is not there anymore. So what you'll do is you can close your eyes and just feel the sensations that are there to feel in your body. So you can feel your heart beating and just focus on the heart beating. You can feel your breath coming in and out and your chest rising and falling. You can feel the anxiety in the pit of your stomach and you can just let it be there and just feel it. A feeling fully felt does not stay. You can tune into the sensations outside your body. So what are you sitting on? What does that feel like? The clothes on your skin, what does that feel like? If you have air moving around you, just feel that air moving around you, touching your skin. And then you can tune into the sounds. So if you're listening to your heart or your breath, you can also tune into the sounds around you, outside of you. So maybe there's a distant rumble of cars and you're just breathing and just literally you're just going to focus on this. Maybe you can hear the breeze or a clock ticking or water dripping or someone moving around on the floor above you, birds chirping, and you're going to just be with that, and that's it. If your eyes are closed and the light is sort of flickering on top of them, then you can just literally focus on the flickering of the light and feeling whatever there is to feel. Doing this will help you get out of that anxiety, the grief, or whatever it is that you are typically wanting to avoid feeling, and just allow that to be felt. The more that you practice this, the better you get at it, because you create neural pathways. What they've found is that this is sort of like a presencing meditation. It's a type of meditation. They have studied people who have used this, and what they found is that, the two sides of our brain, one side is more activated with the negative thoughts and negative emotions, and the other side is more activated with positive thoughts and positive emotions. Doing this presencing sort of meditation increases activity in, I believe it's a left hemisphere of your brain, which is associated with positive emotions and positive thoughts. So you actually can shift what your brain is doing. And then more naturally and more automatically be in the positive instead of the negative. So this is just one thing that you can do if you're starting to feel that activated attachment system, your activated nervous system. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about this. If you guys have questions, I can answer questions. So let's see, Sally. So I get it. Any tips on having huge fear of recent ex moving on? I keep imagining how he's going to skip onto someone else, even though he's so unavailable and shut down and suffering with mental health right now. Yeah, so that fear, related to your ex, this is all goes back to the attachment system. So this is where you actually need to start to work with what's in the love blueprint and start that self-healing work. Because your ex is sort of just, he's the figure right now, right? There's gonna be someone else that you'll fall in love with, and the same thing will it's just a pattern. So the fear that he's gonna move on, now he will move on, right? That everybody will. Whether or not he's with someone doesn't matter. What matters is actually how you are feeling and what your relationship is with yourself. So being able to do the self-soothing is more important. You want to turn back and refocus back on you. What is it that he was giving you? What in you was what was the purpose that he was serving for you? Because there was something he was doing for you by being in your life. How can you do that for yourself? How can you give that to yourself? So take the focus off of the ex and back onto you. What do I need right now for me? How can I give that to myself? Any other questions that you guys have?